Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Impact, where we dive deep into films and go into, from an entrepreneurial perspective, what you can learn from movies. Movies changed my life. They are the reason that I've had the kind of success that I've had as an entrepreneur, and we wanted to create a show where we could go in on those kinds of things, where you guys can see what you can extract from a movie and apply to your real life. And I am joined by fellow cinephiles. On my left, Dr. Finesse, and on my right, Casey Files Elliott. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Today we're going to be covering Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Spoiler alert!
All right, so let's dive in. What's initial thoughts?
Okay, oh man. Okay, I'm gonna have to hit you at a couple of layers with this.
Let's hear it.
So, I went with a group of friends. The last 3 Star Wars universe films, Rogue One, last 2, Rogue One, and then, of course, The Force Awakens, the first part of this trilogy. They all went. I didn't go because they went to like midnight, 1:30 screenings, and I don't do that anymore. It just doesn't happen. And there's another reason why I didn't go with them, too. I probably would have toughed it out, and I had forgotten this reason. So we meet up. It's a 10 p.m. movie. Still a little too late for my taste, but I'm like, I'm going to do it this time. I don't want to be left out. And we meet up at the ArcLight. They're at the ArcLight bar. They're drinking. I'm dry for 2 hours because I'm like, I'm not even drinking a sip of water because I don't want to have to use the bathroom.
Yep.
So I'm excited. I'm pumped. It's finally hitting me. And we're walking into the theater. And then I see these 2 theater workers standing there with a bucket, and they hand me a pair of glasses. And I'm like, wait, what? Is this 3D? And they were like, yeah. And I looked at one of my friends. I was like, is this 3D? He's like, yeah. I'm like, no. You guys know I don't fuck with 3D. And I don't even curse, but I was like mad. I was like, I hate 3D. They're like, wait, how did you not know? I was like, was it in the email? And they're like, you know, I don't think it was in the email. They had gotten used to seeing the 3D films that didn't even put in the email. And I was like, oh, no, I can't do this. So like, Chris, just come on in. I was like, I can't do this. But I went in, and so it was hard for me going in. Going in, it was already going to fail for me. Going in. So, and I took out my contacts, and I was wearing my glasses. So I had to put 3D glasses on top of glasses. And if you wear glasses, that doesn't work. Because you have your glasses, and suddenly the depth of perception is off because the glasses are on top of the glasses. And I have a double astigmatism in both eyes, and it's crazy, so my brain doesn't quite process 3D. Ruined. So I'm going to give my impression, and then I'll dive back into the 3D nature of it and other things. I thought the movie, I'm not going to do the thumb thing yet. I wasn't that impressed. But I'm going to give it another shot because of my experience. And it was a weird experience all around. I had a weird giggling person behind me. I don't know what was wrong with her. She was just really excited to be there. She was like, we're all Star Wars fans. And there are a lot of Star Wars fans. But she was like a Star Wars fanatic to the T. Like, she was giggling when the scrolls started going to the point where she started bawling.
Whoa.
She was like, oh my God, I'm so happy for this. And I was like, is she joking right now? And that was pretty much the whole movie. Any tense part, she was like, and I was like, she having an orgasm? I kid you not. And it was messing with me. I was like, I can't see the screen because of this 3D mess, and someone's giggling behind me. It was a mess. But I'll dive in later. So I struggled with the movie.
All right.
Wow.
Files, what you got for us?
Such a dramatic theater-going experience. I don't know what to say. Mine was much more pleasant as far as the theater. But I actually, too, I thought the movie was okay. There were parts where I was like really excited and inspired and feeling like the glory of Star Wars. And then there were I thought some things were very heavy-handed. Not that Star Wars is a particularly subtle universe for themes, but in this one it just felt very heavy-handed in areas. And then sometimes I could feel, I don't know, it felt a little childish in areas. They definitely were trying something new with the humor, which I liked sometimes and other times I didn't. So overall I did enjoy it. I liked it. I would still recommend it to people who want to see it, but I didn't love it as much as the reviews that I've been seeing seem to.
Yeah, very interesting. So for me, I'm just now, since we started doing the show, I'm just now getting back into going to the movies. Mm-hmm. For years and years and years, as we know, I focused on building businesses, and so I never went out to movies anymore. And it was virtually all seen at home. And so going out last night, I was in a pleasant way reminded of how amazing it is to go to an event. And there were so many people there. And because I go to the same theater and I go roughly at the same time, I know what it's normally like. And it's normally a ghost town. Like I'm there's a couple people. I walk in and it's just like to the nines, right? Like there's hundreds of people. And there's like little kids, they're dressed up. There's parents, they're dressed up. Like there was just a cool vibe in the air. It was so neat. Go into the movie, sit down, and they've put popcorn on your seat for you. Like caramel corn with a letter
Is
from
that what I saw up there?
I was like, yeah.
Did not do that to me.
I was like, wow, like this is so cool. And so I was like totally just primed for this movie to be an amazing experience. And then it starts and the scroll and people are clapping and cheering. And I was like, this is amazing. And then what is almost the opening scene is like kind of slapsticky comedy. Not slapstick, that's not the right word. But it was like super modern humor of like, oh, I think he's messing with you, right? Oh, can you hear me? And I was like, not okay. Not in the Star Wars universe. I was totally put off by it. And I was like, oh, guys, no. And for the first third of the movie, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, the humor I could forgive, fair enough. It's actually funny stuff. I just didn't think it belonged in the Star Wars universe. So I was like, okay, like not my thing. Wish you hadn't, but I'm not going to hate on the film for that. But the story, I couldn't follow. I was like, what is going on? There's so many characters. They've all got different things. We're skimming across the surface. It's going really fast. I'm not invested in anybody except historically, right? So it's like, well, because I know Finn, but he's like jumping in an escape pod. I'm like, what is, like, literally there's too much going on. You get one line that will set up something really important, but I didn't quite understand what they were saying. So now they've moved on. I'm like, there were no stakes for me. And so I thought, whoa, like, I'm having fun because it's in the Star Wars universe, but like it's not a good one. And while I respected we're back in like the original trilogy feel where they're using puppets and not just CGI, so it felt good. I like the acting and all that, but I'm like, it's just not adding up. And so in the movie, I'm thinking about the original trilogy where it was like really tight, simple storytelling. Now, because we plan to make our own films, I'm thinking, okay, like the simplicity of this is so important. Like the original Star Wars films. Luke is your main character. There are other ancillary characters, but nobody's confused who the main character is. I was legit confused.
And you should
like,
never be confused.
Who's the fucking main character in this? I don't know who I'm supposed to like really be paying attention to. And then about a third of the way through, it started simplifying. And to your point, maybe getting ham-handed, but I actually didn't feel that. And as it got simpler, and I began to know exactly whose story we're telling and exactly where this is going, I was like, oh shit, like they're winning me back over and I'm like getting sucked in. And then it's like, as we're talking about the Jedi religion, and by the time Yoda shows up, they totally won me back over.
It's like, what's up, Yoda?
And by the end of it, so there's this famous line in filmmaking, wow them in the end and you have a hit. By the end, I was wowed. And I was way into it. And totally, they won me over 100%. So the first third, make it through, because I think the second third is worth it.
Yeah, I knew the second it started. I mean, besides the fact that I had someone giggling and crying behind me,
and orgasm,
and besides the fact that I had that, and then I had the 3D problem, which made the film look like the Phantom Menace to me. That's why I don't get 3D. Why do you want the person here and the set back there? Because suddenly it's like that's a set. I can see a set. So that, but then that first scene with General Hux, General Huxtable, but General Hux when he's and Poe is having that exchange with him. I just thought, I was like, no, not this film. Not this film. And it's something that Guardians of the Galaxy, it's a problem they caused. Like, it worked for Guardians of the Galaxy. It was fantastic. But suddenly every studio and filmmaker wanted to follow suit. They're like, that worked. It's amazing. Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone loves it. It's action and humor. And some people did it appropriately, and it worked for Thor. It worked really great for Thor, but not in the Star Wars universe. I was like, no, don't do this. And it set a bad tone for me. But as we moved along, I don't want to say I was won over. It was maybe more that my eyes finally adjusted an hour and a half into the film. Or my brain just forgot and said, like, there's not a nose in front of your eyesight, and there's also not a character standing here. But I just, I started appreciating it more. And it's one of those films that's sitting with me, too. When I think about it and read about it, I start to understand it more and appreciate it more, which is why I'm going to give it a second chance. I'm not just going to give up on it. I'm going to go again and see it in non-3D. But yeah, it caught up to me.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into our first segment here. This is What Would You Do? This is one of my favorite segments of diving into the film, seeing characters make choices, and what would you do? So here it is. Number 1, Poe taking command of the ship and literally doing a mutiny, which I was surprised by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dr. Finesse?
You know what's so weird? It's very weird. I don't know what it is. Anytime I hear of a mutiny when I'm reading history books, anything, or just in a TV show, I always get so mad. I'm like, no, don't do that. No. Trust your leader, even if the leader is terrible. Like, it's something about it. I don't know what it is. Maybe because I was raised a military kid. It's always so weird for me. So I remember getting mad at Poe. I was like, Poe, no, don't you dare. So, I know he had his intentions, but look, he's not an admiral. And it's not his place to make decisions. He was questioning every decision. He was impatient. And it's not like there's anything wrong with impatience, but when you question the decisions of your leaders without having all the answers and not knowing what the game plan is, to me, it's a problem. You know what I mean? When you know the game plan and you have all the answers and you're in the planning room every second of the way and you're part of the board, whatever, sure, by all means, question away. And you can still question even your leader, but if you don't have all the answers, don't start a mutiny. So I had a problem with that. So I would not do that. I would not. Definitely my answer to the what you would do. No, not a mutiny because I don't believe in mutinies unless you have all the answers or unless you're on a slave ship. But that's different.
That escalated quickly.
Where'd this go? This is dark.
Right.
The Force.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, but I do want to give props to our new character played by Laura Dern. Holdo?
Holdo.
Admiral Holdo. Mm-hmm. Love Laura Dern. Loved seeing her in this. As we said, spoiler alert. I'm sad that we only got one movie with her, but...
did we?
Oh.
But did we?
Okay. She seemingly did a suicide mission to save the rest of the resistance, but maybe that's...
Which, by the way, was one of the coolest moments in the film.
Mm-hmm.
That was fucking sick. Even...
Agreed.
I felt like they were changing canon a bit, I'm going to be honest with you, in that a jump to light could be used as a weapon, because if it can, why haven't they done that before?
Yeah.
But that was sick. I actually have the chills now. Like, the way they handled it visually was fucking gnarly.
And it was quiet.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, great having Laura Dern and having like two strong female leaders in a row. Leia, then it goes to Laura. Holdo. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I don't really understand why Poe is so makes such silly decisions like this.
Dumb decisions.
Because from what we know of him, at least from the first movie, he's a pretty smart guy. He's a great pilot. But it's interesting because he also disagreed with Leia a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So he definitely has a problem with authority.
He got a fleet killed.
Yeah. And yeah, I wouldn't, it just seems like a decision where you don't know all the details and you're thinking you know everything, which is never, as we know, never a good idea. You should take a moment before you take over the entire ship. Although I do kind of wonder why she didn't just say, well, here's my plan. It's kind of a plot hole. She could just say, hey, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So calm down. So
Yeah, and that's my beef with it as well, and I'm going to answer this question in two ways. So one, it's the much ado about nothing problem that I find in films a lot, where you manufacture some reason for somebody to have a fit, but really, if Poe had just gone up and said, hey, this doesn't make sense to me, can you please explain? Like, I consider myself, part of the leadership team or whatever. please give me the answers, as you said. There was no reason, like once it's finally revealed, there's no reason not to tell Poe. There's no reason not to make him part of the decision-making process, or even decisions made, here it is, here's why we're not telling other people, whatever. Or if you need dramatically for that to be the reason, there's got to be some like thing that I'll buy into when you finally tell him of why you couldn't tell him that before, why him knowing would put everyone in danger, right? So it's like, as you see him ratcheting up, you pull him aside and you say, look, this is fucking what we're doing. Like, calm down. This is like, we don't want other people to know in case there's a mole or something, whatever. But like, he just kept ratcheting and they don't say anything. She gives some like really oblique, kind of powerful, like hang on my wall statement of, if you only believe in hope when you can see it, then you're never going to make it through the darkness of the night or whatever. But it's like, homie, give him a real answer that will stop. He literally has you arrested. Like that was crazy. So that was like a Much Ado About Nothing. I knew why they were doing it. They've got to set him up as the Han Solo replacement. And this is one thing I think they're actually doing really well. And I'm going to give them credit for this. They're basically remaking the original trilogy, like from an oblique angle. Yeah. And so like they're setting up Poe Dameron as the Han Solo replacement. Obviously we know who the Luke Skywalker replacement is. So, and Darth Vader is, since they say you're the next Darth Vader, that one's pretty easy to figure out. So even the Emperor, right? Like it's all there. And so I like that because I think that Star Wars, the original trilogy, is essentially the perfect story. So if it's a perfect story in some way, especially because it's set in the same universe, you really should be trying to remake it. Yeah. So, and I think they're doing good of coming at it from oblique angles, but you've got to be so careful not to do the Much Ado About Nothing. So now here's why I will come to Poe's aid and say, if you really believe the leader is going to get everyone killed, you have a moral obligation, in my opinion, to mutiny. Like, but you've got to be so careful, because what if you're wrong? So to your point, like, I would not go into a mutiny lightly, but it's always on the table, right? And even thinking about that in the sphere of a company, it's like, if I'm about to tank the fucking company and I'm not giving you guys information and you don't know why I'm on some like suicide mission, and I am thinking right now of a real example of a company, if I said out loud, people would know. You know this company quite well, in fact. And I know insider information where a guy was literally just on a drug bender and he was going fucking nuts, and it was this huge company. Everybody knew it. They had already bought the champagne. Because they were going to sell it. They'd already bought the champagne. They had the bottles in the office. They were that close to doing a deal. And the guy was just drugged out of his mind and like basically fucked everything up at the last second. And I thought, that's a time where you fucking mutiny. You duct tape him. You put him in a closet. Like, whatever you need to do. Because, I mean, it is, in that case, it was drugs, right? So if somebody's really making a decision that's like everybody's about to get killed, then I think you actually have a moral obligation to step up.
Now, in Poe's case, he might have gotten the entire fleet killed if his mutiny succeeded, right? Because Leia comes back from her little sleep and her slumber and stuns him, which I love, because he's like, Leia. And you're like, haha, she's back. She's going to side with him. And she just raises her hand and shoots him down.
This is sort of a technical question, so slightly off topic, but can someone explain to me why it was such a slow chase the entire movie?
They explain it. It's kind of dumb.
It's a little muddy, right?
Like the gigantic cruisers can only go so fast. So they know if we jump into light speed, we'll lose all of our fuel. We'll only be able to jump once. They'll track us through and then we're dead. Yeah. But in like a cheesy throwaway line that they just kind of made up, like the starship can only go so fast, whereas their ship is faster. So they can, the cannon has a certain distance where it would destroy your shields, and they just stayed right at the edge where it hits them. Exactly. But it's not hitting them hard enough. Now, in my opinion, what a horrific cop-out, since light doesn't degrade over time. So I was just like, if this is really, these are light cannons and light sabers, it's like, it would never end. Literally, it will go until it hits something. With no loss. But
to me, that could have been better executed. Did you guys watch Battlestar Galactica?
I did, yes.
Okay, so do you remember the episode where they just kept jumping into light speed and then they just kept getting followed? You know, they kept going and going and going. They should have just done multiple light speeds and made the fuel problem about like, hey, we just did about 20 light speeds and now we're running out. They should have extended it that way. You know what I mean? Instead of just being like, and I got it. They explained it, but it was just like, we're hanging out. We're shooting. And that could have been better executed.
It didn't bother me at all in the movie. I'll call it a refrigerator problem, at least for me. Where in the movie I didn't think about it, but the next day as you're reaching for the fridge, you're like, wait a second.
You're like, what?
Questionable.
Yeah. Questionable. All right, number 2. Rey ignores Luke and goes to meet Kylo Ren to try to turn him from the dark side. What would you do?
That was when we talk about the similarities and paralleling the previous Star Wars films. That was clearly Octu. That planet was clearly Dagobah. You know what I mean? And Rey, not so much being trained in this sense, but being impatient and thinking, I'm going to go and instead of going to save my friends, I'm going to go and save Kylo Ren. Kylo, sorry. And she just wasn't listening to Luke at all. So that was very much Luke not listening to Yoda. So that was kind of a cool parallel. I'm sure a lot of people will beg to differ and be like, there they go, doing the same thing again. But I like that execution. Now for me, you know what? Like I said, I'm a runner. Like I was trying to figure it out. I was like, why does Rey want to save Kylo so badly? Clearly she was feeling a connection with him. But at the same time, why does she want to just go and risk herself and save him so badly? But I have really mixed feelings about this, but why would you stay with Luke? And this is something we can talk about later, but I kind of saw Luke most of the movie as pathetic. And it was hard for me. It didn't sit well for me. He was hiding, like Yoda. But Yoda was very wise, where Luke was like, I'm tired of this. And his voice and drinking green milk coming down his beard. I was like, Luke is a drunk. He's drunk off of weird green milk. So I just, it was hard for me. So for what you would do, I would leave, be like, Luke, I'm sorry, you're drunk off of green milk. I can't do this anymore. And I'm going to go fight the battle. And I just felt like Luke was running away from his problems. And as we discussed before in our previous Real Impacts, that you shouldn't run away from your problem. And Luke was kind of running away from this problem. And he knew what was going on. He knew his sister was caught up in the battle. Why is he hanging out and hiding? And I know he thought he was doing it for the benefit of keeping the Jedi Order down and the Jedi must die. But I think now I figured out what I would do. Rey was the better person, the stronger person, and I would have done that. I rambled.
I guess I have to disagree. Despite the fact that is what happened, she left to confront Kylo Ren. I felt like she's making a lot of decisions like she knows anything and she knows nothing at this point. And her mission was to find Luke and bring him back. And yes, things can develop and maybe your mission might change, but I felt like she just made a rash decision. And like you're saying, in the parallel to what happens with Luke in Empire Strikes Back, those are his friends. I could feel the emotional need to want to go save them. You're not going to just stay and train. But that was not the situation here. She was on a mission from Leia to save the Resistance by bringing Luke back. And yes, Luke was a pain in the ass. But I feel like, to me, she didn't give up easily. She definitely tried hard to convince him. But she doesn't know why she's having these visions with Kylo Ren. She doesn't know what their connection is. It certainly doesn't feel like it's a good connection. And Luke knows a lot more about the Force than she does. So I just felt like it was a very rash decision, and it was like not listening to someone with experience. So I would not do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that Rey made the wrong decision, especially because when you're somewhere to learn, like not taking the time to actually get powerful, like if your goal is to turn Kylo Ren, there was no reason to believe that like there was some very limited amount of time in which he could turn. It's like you're connected, you keep having these moments with each other, build on that momentum, right? Take the time, one, to figure it out. Like, if I am beginning to learn about the Force and I know someone, they even asked the question, like, who's doing this? It's got to be someone incredibly powerful, because he said if you were doing it, it would destroy you. So we know it's not her. At first I thought maybe it was Luke. Then I thought, okay, maybe it was Snoke.
Yes.
but I wasn't
Notes.
entirely sure what was going on there. So if I'm her, I'm thinking I need to get way more powerful. I really need to train. Also, like you said, my mission is to get Luke back in the training. Can I gain his trust and really show him something? So while I totally bought into Luke going off half-cocked in the original series, because of exactly what you guys said, which is those are your friends, right? And like it's someone that you're willing to die for. But why would she put herself into the world's most dangerous situation, like ever, to try and turn like that didn't make any sense to me.
It didn't make sense. But it's funny because the reason I went back and forth in my answer is because it doesn't make sense. But again, I keep thinking she wasn't at the island or whatever you want to call that beautiful planet, but she didn't learn anything really from Luke. Luke wasn't interested in training her. He had her mic, which I thought was actually kind of a funny moment when, the movie ends with him taking mic. Oh my God, what am I talking about? The lightsaber.
I was like, the mic. He had her mic. I was like, did I
he
mishear him?
tosses it over his shoulder.
That was funny.
Yeah, it was funny. He has no interest in training her. What is she learning there? She's trying to drag him back. She's not learning anything. If anything, he's dragging her down. There is a war raging, And it's not just about saving her friends. It's about saving that fleet, about saving his sister. And he's hanging out with some strange birds and protecting the Jedi scrolls. I just was like, man, come on, Luke. I was just so sad. I was like, Luke, do something. Which, of course, he does, but get up.
It does become a really cool moment in the film, though, when he shows up at the end, like in the final battle. And people in the theater went pretty crazy for that, which I thought was a lot of fun.
That was pretty
cool. Now, the thing and we're, I guess, wrapping to what would you do, but the thing that I really liked on that dynamic between Rey and Luke, even though I think in the film it's the wrong choice, it should be about her, but in the grander arc of Luke's story, it's actually pretty interesting where Yoda comes back, which was my favorite moment of the film, where you see him and he's, like you said, the Yoda that we remember, and he fucking torches the tree right as Luke is like stopping himself, burns the books down, and he's laughing and like bouncing his feet. I was in hysterics at that. I thought that was amazing. And I think his line is something like, basically, "Oh, Luke, I've so missed you," right? Yeah, because Luke is like grappling with these big moral quandaries, and for Yoda, it's just much simpler. So we got the wisdom. We didn't get it from Luke, which I actually think is a mistake. I think Luke, in the like story of this film, Luke really should have taken the Yoda position and been wise. And like, I like that he struggled and was like, look, the first time that I encountered this level of power, I didn't fear it enough, and this time I do. But once he flips the switch into, okay, I'm actually going to train you, and here are the lessons, then you got to be full Yoda mode. Then you've got to be, I have this deep wisdom, and here it is. And it should have been Luke's realization that we get from Yoda, which is...
I think you're hitting that head on, because we saw that with Obi-Wan, right? His problem with Anakin, but then Obi-Wan became the wise person who taught Luke something. And then, of course, Yoda was wise, taught Luke something. And here's Luke not continuing the cycle. He's just like, whoa.
And it's interesting because they paint him as the warrior in the end, right?
Yeah.
It's him who does the brave thing, which I was actually... This now, we're going to go really off on a tangent here, but I was very sad that he just disappears at the end. I was like, the fuck is that? That was so random to me. It just did not make any sense. And so at first I thought, he's a warrior, right? And you get that cool moment where all lasers are on him. It was fucking awesome. And you get a great line, which was comedy that I enjoyed, which is, do you think you got him?
Yeah.
Like, that I thought was great. And when Luke is still standing there, I was like, oh, fuck, what a badass. But then you realize he's actually like, astro projecting himself. Astral projection?
Which they call in the Star Wars universe force projecting.
Nice. Okay, so he's force projecting himself. And then I thought, okay, because he's wiped and it was really hard, like, okay, I respect it. But then just poof, he disappears. I was like, what? Like, if it had killed him, like, because it was so, like, such an act of salvation for other people, like self-sacrificing, I could have been into it. But it doesn't. He's like, okay, and then he sits in the position and he tells the guy, I'll see you later, kid, and like all of that. But then that was really disjointing for me. But yeah, so I'll stop that tangent there.
Just so I can clarity, you thought it was weird that he disappeared at the end, or disappeared from the battlefield?
Disappeared.
Okay.
I thought it was disappointing.
Yes, me too. Me too. I was like, wait, well, what? What? I was
like it needed. He either needed to die in one for one sacrifice to save everybody, or not. But he gets everyone out of danger, and it's not the sense of like, oh, he hangs on just long enough to say one final word and then dies. It's he gets everyone out of danger. He crawls back up, sits calmly in a meditative repose, and then has no realization that I can make sense of. Looks up at the sun.
The binary sun.
And at first it looks like something's flying towards him. I don't know if you guys... I was like, oh, who's coming? Who's coming?
I saw something in the sun. I was like, someone's coming.
And so I thought, oh, there's about to be a really cool moment. But then no, he's just looking off into the distance at the dual sun, and then he's gone. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, did we cut a scene? Like, what just happened?
It doesn't feel like the universe would be done with him. Like, when Ben disappears...
He has to sacrifice himself.
There's a reason, like you're saying. And he's lived a Jedi life for, like, we've already seen that Luke has not really passed along the knowledge like he should. We're not done with you yet, Luke. Like, you don't get to go join the ghostly hologram club. I don't think he's done enough yet. So I don't know.
I know. Exactly. To allow the rest of the folks to sneak out the back, it wasn't enough for me. You know what I mean? And then to go back and die by way of extreme force projection, it just wasn't enough.
But did he die of extreme force projection? That's my problem.
I would guess so.
Because he collected himself. Anyway, all right, I'm not going to dive too deeply down that. All right, everybody, now it's time for my favorite segment of all, Cold Stone Themery. Here we are. All right, theme number 1, why failure should be every Jedi Master's best friend. What do you think about that?
You know what? I think with anything, with business, with even athletics, whatever, anything you're striving for, I don't think you fully comprehend success unless you fail. Like, I think you've got to fall on your face, you've got to fall on your ass to give yourself perspective to what it feels like to actually get somewhere. And you learn a lot when you fail. Like, when you fall down hard and fail, you step back, you evaluate what you did right, what you did wrong, and how you can correct it. And I think with Jedis, I mean, that's the theme through all the Jedis that we know. You know, they all get ahead of themselves. And, you know, they have this extreme power. When you're a Jedi, you're not just shooting lasers and getting in the cockpit and flying. You actually have the craziest power, which, on a side note, I'm still shocked that even 30 years later, that people still don't respect the power of Jedis. Like, when Hux is screaming at Kylo, I'm like, don't scream at him. He's going to crush your neck. Why do you guys make this mistake every time? You've seen a guy use his hands and crush someone's neck, and you're still yelling at them. I'm sorry. So, but I think with Jedis, you've got to have failure to run your course, just like with anything in your life. And I think because you have such great power, which comes, you have to have great responsibility. So, and I think if you fail, again, you get to step back, look at the big picture, and understand what this power is. And, you know, if you look at the folks that go down the dark side, they really don't experience much failure. They get seduced by it. You know what I mean? But then you think of the folks who have faced the dark side and actually take a step back. I see that as failure. Being seduced by the dark side but not actually jumping in, I see that as a sense of failure because you're given into your emotions. And they come out even stronger and lighter. So with the Jedi, yeah, I think, you know, for this theme, it really resonates with me. And I think, if anything, that they kind of hit home with this film that stood out was that element of failures and Jedis. So,
there's a moment early on when Rey is first arrived at the island, and Luke, I think it's when she goes in and sees the text for the first time, I believe, and Luke says something like, very much paraphrased, but he basically talks about how it's time for the Jedi to be over because we keep making the same mistakes. Like, clearly Jedis aren't making the right decisions. And it feels, I hate that this is what happened in the canon of Star Wars, but Luke messed up once and just gave up. He didn't yes, it was big. It was a big fuck up. It was his sister and Han's son that he sort of had a big part in turning to the dark side. But it's really sad that he didn't have the wisdom yet, after all he went through in the original trilogy, to pick himself up and try again and have hope and learn from what he had done. Instead, he just like wallowed in despair and ran away and hid, which is sad. But at least in this movie, we get to see like why it is so important for him to learn that lesson, that he needs to learn from those failures, that all the failures of Jedis in the past, the preceding generations have learned from those failures. He learned from his father. You know, he just couldn't learn from his own failure, interestingly enough. But I think, yeah, an important message when when Yoda finally says to him that, you know, you're missing the point, basically. And that's when you see that little spark of Luke clicking in, like, oh, I don't have to give up because I had this one big error in my life. Like, I need to continue on and fight the good fight.
Yeah, I think Yoda summed it up best when he says, "Failure's your best teacher are," or whatever
the greatest teacher it is.
Yeah, is so true. And ultimately, you know, whether we're dealing with Jedi or aliens or whatever, all the movies are meant to explore the human condition. And the truth of failures being your best teacher is so beyond true. And I think that. And the funny thing is, all the words that I'm using and explaining are about things that I was disappointed weren't handled as well as they could be. I really did enjoy the movie, and I think that it's a good addition to the canon. But when you really start going deep on this, it would have been incredibly powerful to fully explore Luke's transformation with realizing, like, I'm okay with that he went and hid, right? Because I think that's a real thing for people, is they do achieve great success at tremendous cost, and then make the mistake of thinking, now I know. And so even though he would have learned a tremendous amount with what he went through, it's such a human tendency to fall prey to hubris that's earned, right? That your success tricks you into thinking that now you really are great. And there's actually a Bill Gates quote about that. And he says, success is a terrible teacher because it tricks otherwise brilliant people into thinking that they're not fallible. And so that's exactly what happens to Luke. Then he has this catastrophic failure, which sort of happens in the in-between movies. And to rejoin him here where he realizes, wait, like, I can take all that knowledge, right? Like, imagine Yoda comes a little earlier and gives him that piece of wisdom that's like, look, your failures are actually your greatest teachers. And then Luke then has the courage to step forward and re-embark on trying to be an amazing master. And so that would have been really cool to see him go, okay, I've actually learned an amazing amount from this and now I'm going to be better, empowered now with the knowledge that it's okay to have failed. And now I'm going to take what I've learned and find that confidence in myself again, which is such an amazing human arc, because we see that all the time. So that would have been really cool to see them explore that. They explored it in a slightly different way.
Well, and I think that's the problem you're sensing, I think you mentioned earlier, is that symptom of not having one person be the main character. Yeah. Because and this is just, we have a bias loving the old movies, but like, I wanted it to be Luke a lot of I'm like, oh, I'm so interested in what Luke's going to explore. But like you said, we're supposed to be invested in Rey. I am, but they were definitely at odds in terms of like, who are we following here? Whose story do we want to get the most meat out of?
You know, it's actually really interesting. I don't think they could have predicted how invested people would still be in the old old actors, not just the characters, but the old actors and characters. I think they could have done a whole nother trilogy wrapping all of their arcs, right? The death of Han, the rebirth of Luke. They would have been obviously in a really dodgy position now that Carrie Fisher passed away, but I think that wrapping those characters in an epic trilogy while introducing as sub-characters all the new people now that we're about to really get to know, I think would have been better, right? So if Rey had really been pushed to the background in this one, if Kylo Ren were remaining in the background in the first two, and we can feel like, oh, that's what's rising up in the way that I can feel the romance between Poe Dameron and Rey is about to heat up and become something, but was like really in the background. Like then I think, because you're right, what I felt towards Luke was like, whoa, I want to see this play out and wrap up. And it's actually a really cool arc that I think even people unfamiliar with the trilogy be like, whoa, this is really powerful. So,
and Mark Hamill, I just want to say, so awesome to get to see him.
He's really developed as an actor. I think he was way better in this than
in
the original trilogy.
Was terrible. To your 2 points, it's funny. I go back and forth about this, and I do have 2 belief systems. I do think the studio didn't put trust in casting a film with the original aging actors. Typical studio politics are like, can't have a film with old folks. It's not going to sell. No one's going to go see it. I don't think they put trust in the lore and the fandom of Star Wars. I think if they crafted it with the original actors and developed a story around it, I think it would have done just as well. Easily. Because, I Ellison knows Star Wars well. I know, and he's 4. There are tons of kids who know the characters from the original trilogy. I think it would have done just as well. But they didn't do it, and they committed to something else. And so the other belief system is, that's fine. Kylo says it time and time again in the film, we've got to do away with the past. We've got to move forward. And I think it was a bold move, but hey, that's what they're doing. Because, I go back and forth. I'm like, damn it, you killed Han. Now Luke is gone. Who's next? And I'm just getting pissed about it, right? Thinking, what are they doing? But at the same time, they're just being bold and moving forward. This is a new order. You know what I mean? This is the new republic. This is,
Sorry, mic drop. This is the new order.
That
was so great.
So it's weird. I have 2 belief systems. But I think if they committed to just using the original cast and running with it, it would have worked. But I don't think they believe that. But they didn't. But hey, it's working for many folks, just not me.
All right, next up, would you rather? All right, we want everybody at home to play along, so make sure you drop your answers into the comments. Today's would you rather. Would you rather come from a line of legendary Jedis or come from nothing?
Well, man, this is tough, because I've always thought Jedis were cool, or I should say are cool, because I still think they're around. There's something about Jedis, the samurai nature of them, you know what I mean? And just even being able to use the Force and the mysticism of the Jedis and how people just don't believe in them, although they're witnessing it and it's right in front of their face. It's amazing to me, and that's what propelled the story of Star Wars for me. We talked about it when we had the panel about the original trilogy. A lot of people, I think people go back and forth, but I feel like growing up, most of my friends were Han Solo fans. How can you not be? He's cool. He's swashbuckling. He was the comic relief in the films.
He's sexy.
And he's sexy. I'll say it. Han Solo was sexy. I'll say it too. But but for me, Luke was always my favorite character. On top of the arc, having the arc, I just love the whole aspect of wielding a lightsaber and being a Jedi and having this power and discovering that you have this power and that it's within you. So I would love to come from a line of Jedis easily. I would love the challenge of having the responsibility of having this great power. I don't want to come from nothing. But then again, there is something cool from coming from nothing, like other folks and who rise like a phoenix, but I'll take the Jedi path any day of the week. I would love to say, yeah, my grandfather was a Jedi, even if I was nothing. Granddaddy was a Jedi.
There it is.
Jedi.
Well, first I want to say, I think one of my favorite element of the film is how they explored this new existence of the Force in people that are not Jedis. So I guess like everyone, I'm not sure about this in Star Wars lore, but I think there are other cases of people who are like Force sensitive, but are not necessarily this Jedi from a Jedi line. But what we learn in the film, and I'm taking it as face value right now, I guess it could be proven false, but Kylo Ren tells Rey, You know, she spent all this time searching for her parents that she never knew. And she realized she has these powers that are mysterious. So she's starting to think, oh, maybe my parents are important. Maybe they're former Jedis. Maybe they're somebody, and I'm not just this junker orphan. Kylo Ren finally tells her, no, your parents were nobodies. They sold you for like scrap metal or something, and, you know, we don't know why you have these powers, but you come from nothing. Not unlike him, who comes from this lineage of Jedis. And then by the end of the film, we see that in that final scene, there are children who have the Force. There are other people out there like Rey with sort of this unexplainable connection to the Force. And so I loved that because that's taking it in a totally new direction from the story of Luke to the story of Rey. Luke, I think I talked about in our other Star Wars panel, was sort of destined for this path, and he just has to take that destiny and fulfill it. Rey is not destined for this. She's doing this all on her own and figuring it out and growing and coming from, I mean, Luke in a sense comes from nothing since he is also orphaned, but then we learn this grand backstory. And it actually, this story reminded me of Blade Runner 2049. Why am I blanking on the main actor's name?
Ryan Gosling.
Thank you. Ryan Gosling, sorry. His character in that film, spoiler alert, starts to believe that he's someone, then learns he's not, and then realizes it doesn't matter. He can still be someone. He doesn't have to have this like history of being someone important. He's important if he makes himself important. So I would rather, to answer the question in long-winded form, I would rather come from nothing and become someone than have it given to me in any way.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, in the most aggressive way possible, I'd want to come from nothing. I think that transcendent, like rags to riches kind of thing, to me is just the ultimate story. And I love the way that they explored it in this. And I absolutely love. There's no actor, legitimately, can you think of a single actor on the planet that would be better at delivering that line than Adam Driver? Like the way he's,
it was fantastic.
Like he just delivers this ultra harsh, really bad news, but like but fucking forget about that. Like, what does that matter? Oh God, it was so good. And if that turns out to be a lie or manipulation, I'll be so angry, because the way he played that moment was, even as you were re-talking about it, I got the chills twice while you were talking about it. And in the theater, I was like, oh my God, that's so great. Like, it was just incredible. I literally have the full body chills again. Like, the way he delivers that line was so amazing. And I love the concept that, you know, her exploration doesn't end with finding out that her parents are special. This isn't like some Harry Potter moment. It's not a Luke Skywalker moment. This is no, really, you come from absolutely nothing. And they really did sell you. That was like the best part. Like, they threw you away. And because she didn't want to believe that, right? Which I don't understand, by the way. Like, if my mom told me tomorrow, oh, by the way, you were adopted, I wouldn't be like, how could my parents throw me away? I would be like, they fucking didn't want a kid. They didn't know me, right? Like, if my mom today said, I'm disgusted with who you are and I don't want to be your mom anymore, that would hurt, right? Because I've developed as a person, like I've done things to like be good and be an honorable son, and for her to then reject me, that would really suck. But you're a lump of flesh when you're born. So like, I've never understood.
A lump of flesh.
Yeah, literally. I've never understood why people get weird about that. But anyway, they do. So that was just such a cool moment for me.
Well, see, here's the funny thing is, I really think he doesn't know what he's talking about.
No.
How does he know that? It's going to be disappointing to you guys.
I will come after you.
I'm sure you'll come after the studio too, and it's going to be disappointing. I feel like you guys are going to be set up for disappointment. I really think
I
you
want to
guys
force choke you right now so badly.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
No, right? Come on, Darth. Like, let's get on it.
I know. I would love for it to be that, and that is fantastic. But it's Disney. There's no way. Her parents are going to be somebody.
She's a princess secretly somehow.
Something.
Don't do it, Disney.
She's going to be.
I will literally go.
It's going to be Jedi nepotism at its finest.
What about those
I will
orphans?
be so traumatized.
I love that little. I just thought that
The
was
little
so.
kid really subtly reaches out
subtle.
for the broom.
Yeah.
Everyone in the theater was like, "Oh!"
Yeah, that was
great.
fantastic. And I think that does say something to what. But to me, I think that was not exactly a red herring, but it was a distraction to be like, look, Kylo tells Rey this, and now that we see these peasant kids actually have the Force, so I think it makes you think, okay, there's finality to this. She does come from nothing. No, I think that whole thing was a beautiful moment, but also a distraction. I really believe it. I really believe it.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Only time will tell. All right, guys, that brings us to our final segment. Where your thumbs at? Where your thumbs at?
You know, it's funny. It's like book club. Like when I do book club, I'm in a book club. I can hate a book, but when we discuss it, it makes me like it more. It's really not the case with this, but it does make me like it more. I'm not going to change my thumbs. I'm going to give it another shot because that 3D part was just crap. This movie, great themes in it. I love the Star Wars universe, the continuity of it. But I also feel like they abandoned some great potential stories, like Snoke. And I think a lot of it has to do with the disappointment because of the fans and the myths that they created in the theories. Like, who's Snoke? Oh my God, Snoke is Samuel Jackson's character. Snoke is everyone's coming up with the most random theories. You know what I mean? And not that I got too excited about them, but I still would have liked Snoke to be something more than just a replacement emperor who gets tricked by a moving lightsaber. He can see anything around him, but he can't see the lightsaber doing this. I'm like, come on, Snoke, you dropped the ball. So that was weak. So because of moments like that, and because of random moments with Finn and Rose, although I love the two of them together, and because Lando Calrissian didn't show up and save the day at some point because I kept hoping for it, I'm going to give it this. But I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to go see it again, not in 3D. And I'll probably see it multiple times. And then as for mindset, man, that's tough. Oh, no, it's a Star Wars universe movie. Mindset, thumbs up, all the way, all the way. So movie, mindset, here I am.
There you go.
So yeah, similarly to you, there were things that were disappointing. I was disappointed in Captain Phasma, who just died. I'm like, that's Brienne of Tarth. I want to know what's going on. Like, we get to see her eye. That's it. She's built up. So that was sad. Unless maybe she survived. Maybe she survived. Maybe I won't be angry by the next film. But so yeah, there were things like that. Snoke. Although, as we've already said, I hope that it turns out that Rey does come from nothing. Also because that was such a fan theory, like blizzard, like who are Rey's parents? Who are Rey's parents? So to answer it like that is kind of funny, amusing to me, and I like that decision. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed it. There were moments where I was cheering, like I do in Star Wars films, but it was uneven for me, especially the Finn Rose storyline. Just got a little silly for me. Too much CGI with those horse things. I didn't like that part. So I'm going to go also this way. I enjoyed it. You should see it if you like Star Wars, but it's not my favorite. And then for mindset, I'm going to follow suit. I still think there were a lot of really strong themes, especially around Luke, which is close to my heart anyway. And the direction they're taking Rey, I really like. So thumbs up for mindset, and then sideways thumb for the film.
All right, so if you had stopped me about 45 minutes into the film, I would have given you a thumbs down on the film. I was not enjoying it. I thought the humor was way off. It was just all over the place. It was moving too quickly. There were too many characters. I wasn't able to really sink in and explore anybody. Like, even think about a moment where Darth Vader in the original one, where the guy's giving him shit and like, we don't believe in your old Jedi religion anymore. I mean, that moment's like a 5-minute piece in the film. I mean, like, they really take their time with it. And I loved it. And because of that, like, you really get to know these characters. Even Darth Vader, right, has like this layered personality. They were just the first third rushing through the film, and I was really, really disappointed. By the end, though, I felt like they'd really turned it around, despite a lot of what I refer to lovingly as refrigerator problems. My experience in the movie post the first third was very enjoyable, and I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed being in the universe. I really enjoyed some of the fun choices they made about using puppets instead of pure CGI. Like, there was just a lot of really, really neat choices. We didn't even get to talk about how it felt like Snoke's space was intentionally a set, which was very interesting. And just
We didn't talk about the I'm sorry to interrupt you,
please.
but the battle on the secret rebel base with the salt mines.
That was visually stunning.
Spectacular.
Yeah.
So that's worth the ticket price, I think.
That's actually very, very true. Very interesting things. God, it makes me want to go into a whole thing about like a whole bunch of other stuff. So we could like do another one just like getting into the nitty gritty from a filmmaking perspective.
Seriously.
But anyway, by the end of it, I did really enjoy it. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up. It's one I will definitely watch again, which to me is the ultimate statement about a film. That's how much fun I had. And I'll just know one to forgive the first third because the second 2/3 is really, really enjoyable. So thumbs up there. From a mindset perspective, definitely a thumbs up. Anytime that you've got Yoda dropping lessons in his funny way that he speaks, I'm all for it. I thought there were a lot of fun takeaways, some great themes. So for me, it's definitely a double-barreled thumbs up. All right, guys, we want to know what you think, so make sure that you're dropping where your thumbs at in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with you.